the Hollywood Unapologetic Podcast with Orlando Delbert, Filmmaking Essentials. You ever stop to think about how radically different the movies and shows we watch today are? I mean, not just what they're about, but how they even get made and, well, how we end up seeing them.
Oh, absolutely. It feels like the entire landscape is shifting under our feet. The old ways, the traditional structures, they're really being challenged.
And that's exactly what we're digging into today, is one of a series we're doing on the democratization of filmmaking happening right now.
That's right.
And you'll find links for more info, books, even some cool merchandise down in the descriptions if you want to explore more.
Definitely worth checking out.
So our mission today is to really unpack how this whole democratization of filmmaking thing is tangled up with, well, the globalization of film and TV.
And how digital technology and the internet are the big drivers behind it all.
Exactly. And we'll also draw some, I think, really interesting parallels with what's happened in the music industry, too.
It's a fascinating mix, isn't it? Technology, creativity, access. For this, we've looked at a whole range of stuff, discussions on Reddit, university papers from places like Falmouth, think tank pieces from the Cato Institute.
Right, and IGNRG, Social Cinema Motion Picture Institute, eSpace, Catapult, Bainbridge, lots of different viewpoints.
A real mix, yeah. Each gives a slightly different angle on this massive change.
Okay, democratization of filmmaking and globalized film and television. It's kind of wild to think, just a couple of decades back, making a proper movie felt like, well, something only studios or really wealthy individuals could pull off.
Completely. I mean, just think about shooting on actual film, on celluloid. The cameras themselves could cost, what, upwards of $250,000 easily.
Right.
And that's before you even buy the film stock. For a standard 90-minute feature, you're talking thousands of feet of film. Heavy stuff, too, like maybe 60 pounds worth. It was a huge financial and logistical hurdle.
It's just staggering when you compare it to now. One of the sources we looked at mentioned that documentary, The Lady in Number 6. It won an Oscar.
Right, I remember that.
And it was shot on a Canon 5D Mark III, a camera that cost like $1,500.
$1,500 compared to $250,000 plus.
It's peanuts. I mean, that's less than renting a pro film camera for maybe a day back then. What does that do for creative freedom?
Oh, the impact is just immense. Suddenly you're not agonizing over the cost of every single take. You're not physically weighed down. It frees you up to experiment, to take more chances.
Makes sense.
And the same thing happened in post-production, editing in the 80s, those nonlinear editing systems. Super expensive, maybe $150,000.
Unbelievable.
Now, you can get software like Final Cut Pro for, what, $300? And it's arguably more powerful, used on huge Hollywood films. That shift in accessibility is just profound.
And we've seen the results, right? That story about Edward Burns making Newlyweds for just $9,000.
Yeah, using off-the-shelf gear and software. Amazing.
It really makes you think of what Francis Ford Coppola predicted way back, didn't he? About accessible camcorders letting some kid become a Mozart with a camera.
Exactly. And it's not just the cost reduction, though that's huge. Digital itself changed the game. Unlike analog film, where every copy gets a bit worse,
Right, degrades.
Digital signals can be copied perfectly, and they're distinct. That simplifies everything from how you work on set to the editing process. Digital nonlinear editing is just so much more flexible.
Okay, so the tools get cheaper, easier to use, and then this is where the globalization part really kicks in for me. It wasn't just making movies that changed, it was seeing them. The old geographical boundaries started to crumble.
And that's where streaming platforms jumped in, your Netflixes, your Amazon Primes, Disney Plus, powered by the internet, basically.
They became the new distributors, but on a global scale.
Precisely. Suddenly, someone in, say, Buenos Aires can easily watch Money Heist, which is from Spain, or someone in Canada gets hooked on Sacred Games from India.
Or Dark from Germany, right?
Exactly. Or think about South Korean stuff like Parasite or The Handmaiden, huge international hits, largely because they were available everywhere on these platforms.
It's amazing how stories rooted in one culture can resonate so widely now.
It really is. And it's not like the platforms are just passive pipes either. They're actively curating this international content. They see the demand.
And they're even getting involved in making stuff that blends cultures, aren't they? Like co-productions.
Yes, definitely. Think about Narcos, Colombian story, American production style, or Castlevania, which has that Japanese anime look but feels quite Western in its storytelling. It's a deliberate mix.
So they're actively shaping this global flow.
And there's this idea, which is quite insightful, of a kind of digital farm system.
Yeah.
These platforms have so much data on what you, the viewers, watch.
Right. They know everything.
Pretty much. So they can spot a hit in one country and then decide, okay, do we just distribute this globally, or maybe we remake it for another market?
Like House of Cards, wasn't that based on a British show?
Exactly. Netflix saw the UK version, looked at their data. People liked political thrillers. People liked David Fincher, Kevin Spacey, and put it all together for the US market. Very data-driven globalization.
So, okay, cheaper tools empower creators everywhere, and global platforms give them a way to reach audiences that they never could have dreamed of before. But it's not all smooth sailing, is it? One thing that came up, especially on Reddit, was this idea of quality creep.
Ah, yes. That's a really important counterpoint. It's the idea that because it's now relatively easy to make something look technically polished.
Like good camera work, clear sound.
Exactly. Smooth moves, nice lighting, crisp audio, things popularized maybe by YouTube styles, that becomes the expected baseline. So even if your story is brilliant, if it doesn't look a certain way, it might just get dismissed.
So the financial barrier drops, but maybe a kind of visual barrier pops up instead.
Right.
Like if you choose a rougher style deliberately, people might just think you're bad at it.
That's the potential danger, yes. And with so many tools and tutorials out there, there's maybe a risk of everything starting to look a bit samey.
Homogenized.
Kind of. Creators might feel pressured to use certain techniques just because they can, easily. So standing out in this huge global flood of content takes more than just technical skill. You need a really strong, unique voice.
It's a weird paradox then.
Yeah.
It's easier than ever to make something look technically good with cheap gear.
Right. Like one Redditor said, we can do a gazillion takes without spending a ton in film, and we can review the takes immediately. That freedom is huge.
Huge difference from the old days. But then another commenter pointed out, even if you make a great film, getting anyone to actually watch it is incredibly hard now. They said their trailer got way more views than the short film itself.
Exactly. The sheer volume is overwhelming. And this is where streaming services also play another role as alternative distribution, especially for indie films, niche stuff that might never get a cinema release.
So they offer another route to an audience.
Yeah, they increase the diversity people can access, and you also see these DIY movements like Joel Haver stuff, people just making things happen with whatever they have. Though, let's be honest, sometimes the quality, well, it can vary wildly.
Yeah. So the digital shift really turned film production and distribution on its head. More global, more accessible for creators and audiences.
No question. We've definitely moved from an industry where a few big players decided what got seen supply-driven, you might say,
Right.
to something more demand-driven, where viewers have a lot more choice and influence.
The numbers back that up, don't they? The global entertainment market was already massive, nearly $97 billion back in 2018. And streaming subscribers jumped, 27% in just 1 year?
Huge growth. And look at Netflix alone, went from maybe 33 million subscribers in 2012 to over 190 million by 2019. That's explosive.
Oh, wow.
And while that's happening, physical media, DVDs and Blu-rays, their sales dropped globally by 14%, but digital distribution revenue, up 34%. It's clear where things are going.
And it's more than just having stuff available. These platforms let you, the listener, basically create your own channel, right? Based on what you like.
Your own personalized broadcast network, yeah. And that preference data feeds back into what gets made next. It's a cycle.
We should probably also mention how social media fits in. Does it change that communal feeling of going to the movies?
Well, some research suggests it might. The social buzz happens online now, maybe more than in the cinema lobby afterwards. It's evolving.
It's interesting, too, that even old school Hollywood has pretty much fully switched over. Over 90% of big movies are shot digitally now.
Mostly for the cost savings, yeah. It just makes economic sense. And we're seeing platforms experiment, too, like with interactive stuff. Black Mirror, Bandersnatch, for example.
Right, choose your own adventure TV. Though that's tricky on a standard TV screen.
It is. But what's maybe even more transformative is just the sheer amount of video being created now because the tech is so accessible. Think about YouTube, 500 hours of video uploaded every minute.
Unbelievable. It totally blurs the lines, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Between traditional TV, streaming shows, and stuff people just make and upload themselves.
Completely blurred. And the reach can be incredible. You get an Australian kids show like Bluey becoming a global hit,
Yeah.
or a very specific Korean drama like Squid Game just exploding everywhere through streaming.
Yeah, Squid Game was nuts.
And then to really show the power of these online platforms, you have someone like Mr. Beast doing a real-life Squid Game on YouTube.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And it gets way more views than even the biggest blockbuster movies ever made. It just shows how massive the potential audience is online, completely bypassing traditional routes.
So this massive shift, democratization, globalization, driven by digital tech and the internet, we see it clearly in film. Does the music industry show a similar pattern? Has it gone through the same kind of upheaval?
Oh, absolutely. The parallels are incredibly strong. You see the same kind of democratization happening in music production. A huge rise in musicians setting up their own home studios.
Right, with laptops and software.
Exactly. Using what are called digital audio workstations, or DAWs.
Okay, so tell us more about that connection. How do these DWs empower musicians like digital cameras and editing software helped filmmakers?
Well, in essence, a DW puts the core functions of a professional recording studio right onto your computer. You can compose, record multiple layers of sound, mix the levels, add effects, even master the final track, all within that software.
So you don't necessarily need to book expensive studio time anymore?
Not necessarily, no. It drastically reduces the reliance on traditional studios and, yeah, the significant costs that come with them.
Which must give musicians a lot more creative control, more autonomy.
Precisely that. And it's also shifted the role of the music producer somewhat. Technical skill is still vital, of course, but producers often become more like creative collaborators now, helping the artist navigate all the possibilities these digital tools offer.
Interesting. So it can lead to maybe more experimental sounds.
It can, yeah. More diverse soundscapes emerge because the process is more fluid and accessible.
But what about the quality? Can you really get professional sounding music out of a home studio setup? Does it compete?
You absolutely can now. Modern DAWs include incredibly sophisticated tools for mixing and mastering things that used to require dedicated, expensive hardware and specialized engineers.
So the tech is caught up.
Definitely. Musicians can tweak every little detail with a precision that just wasn't feasible or affordable for most independent artists before. They can achieve genuinely professional results on their own.
And the financial side, beyond just saving on studio time, how has that changed things?
It's significant. Okay, there's an upfront cost for the software, maybe some gear like microphones or monitors, but the long-term savings can be huge. Plus, and this is crucial, digital distribution platforms.
Like Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube.
Exactly. They allow artists to release their music directly to a global audience, bypassing the traditional record label system if they choose.
Meaning they keep more of the money.
A much larger share, typically. This has been a massive boost for independent artists. The whole indie music scene has exploded because of this direct access.
Yeah, you definitely hear about more big independent artists now than you used to.
For sure. The global indie music sector is actually a really big chunk of the market now, maybe around 40%, according to the IFPI. You see artists like Billie Eilish or Chance the Rapper.
Right, they started out very independently.
Yeah, built huge followings online, used platforms cleverly, often without major label backing initially. It really shows the power of that direct connection to fans.
And thinking about accessibility again, this tech hasn't just helped financially, it's also opened doors for musicians with disabilities, hasn't it?
That's a really vital point, yes. Technology has enabled new ways to make music. Think of instruments like the theremin, which you play without touching it, or newer technologies like Soundbeam or Benemin, which can translate physical movements into sound. These are amazing tools for people who might face barriers with traditional instruments.
So technology is breaking down different kinds of barriers.
Exactly. And there's also a growing awareness within the industry when designing software and hardware to think about inclusive design, making sure tools are usable by everyone.
It's really inspiring, actually, seeing how technology is doing this in both film and music, empowering creators, giving us, the audience, access to such a wider range of voices and stories from all over the world.
It really is. Now, challenges obviously still exist, making sure everyone has access to the tech and the education to use it, for example. But the overall direction, this trend towards democratization and globalization in both fields, it's undeniable.
So if we had to boil it all down, it seems clear that digital technology and the internet have just fundamentally changed the game for both making films and making music.
I think the key takeaway is really this. We're in an age of, well, unprecedented access for creators pretty much everywhere. And at the same time, audiences globally have this incredibly rich, diverse menu of content available like never before.
The old gatekeepers, the studios, the labels,
yeah,
they just don't hold all the cards anymore.
not like they used to. The power to create, and maybe more importantly, to connect directly with an audience, is increasingly in the hands of the artists themselves.
It really makes you wonder what's next, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How will this keep evolving? How will this ongoing democratization continue to shape storytelling, shape artistic expression globally? What completely new ways of creating or collaborating might pop up? It's pretty exciting to think about.
It absolutely is. Definitely check out those links in the description. You'll find more on our Democratization of Filmmaking series and other resources. Lots more to explore there.
You can find more insights on navigating the entertainment industry and achieving success in Orlando Delbert's work, including his book, Pollyanna's Tear-Soaked Battlefields of Hollywood, a survival guide against the cynicism and the hypocritical, and of course, the Hollywood Unapologetic platform. And always remember, you are the key to your own success. You are the new Hollywood generation.
Be informed, be prepared, and most importantly, be great.
That's it. Be great. Good luck out there.
See you next time.